Britannia was the Greek and Roman term for the geographical region of Great Britain, Great Britain, an island which was inhabited by the Britons, and is the name given to the female personification of the island. It is a term still used to refer to the island today. The name is Latin, and derives from the Greek form Prettanike or Brettaniai, which originally designated a collection of islands with individual names, including Albion and Great Britain. However, by the 1st century BC, Britannia came to be used for Great Britain specifically. In AD 43, the Roman Empire began its conquest of the island, establishing a province they called Britannia, which came to encompass the parts of the island south of Caledonia. The native Celtic inhabitants of the province are known as the Britons. In the 2nd century, Roman Britannia came to be personified as a goddess, armed with a trident and shield and wearing a Corinthian helmet. The Latin name Britannia long survived the Roman withdrawal from Britain in the 5th century, and yielded the name for the island in most European and various other languages, including the English Briton and the modern Welsh Prydain. After centuries of declining use, the Latin form was revived during the English Renaissance as a rhetorical evocation of a British national identity, especially following the Acts of Union in 1707, which joined the kingdoms of England and Scotland. The personification of the Marshal Britannia was used as an emblem of British imperial power and unity. She was featured on all modern British coinage series until the redesign in 2008, and still appears annually on the gold and silver Britannia bullion coin series. In 2015, a new definitive £2 coin was issued, with a new image of Britannia. Greek and Roman periods. The first writer to use a form of the name was the Greek explorer and geographer Pytheas in the 4th century BC. Pytheas referred to Prettanike or Brettaniai, a group of islands off the coast of northwestern Europe. In the 1st century BC, Diodorus Siculus referred to Britannia, a rendering of the indigenous name for the Prettanike people whom the Greeks believed to inhabit the British Isles. Following the Greek usage, the Romans referred to the insulae Britannici in the plural, consisting of Albion, Hibernia, Thule and many smaller islands. Over time, Albion specifically came to be known as Britannia, and the name for the group was subsequently dropped. The Roman conquest of the island began in AD 43, leading to the establishment of the Roman province known in Latin as Britannia. The Romans never successfully conquered the whole island, building Hadrian's Wall as a boundary with Caledonia, which covered roughly the territory of modern Scotland, although in fact the whole of the boundary marked by Hadrian's Wall lies within modern-day northern England. A southern part of what is now Scotland was occupied by the Romans for about 20 years in the mid-2nd century AD, keeping in place the Picts to the north of the Antonine Wall. People living in the Roman province of Britannia were called Britanni, or Britons. Ireland, inhabited by the Scotti, was never invaded and was called Hibernia. Thule, an island 6 days' sail north of Britain, and near the frozen sea, possibly Iceland, was also never invaded by the Romans. The Emperor Claudius paid a visit while Britain was being conquered and was honored with the agnomen Britannicus as if he were the conqueror. A frieze discovered at Aphrodisias in 1980 shows a bare-breasted and helmeted female warrior labeled Britannia, writhing in agony under the heel of the emperor. She appeared on coins issued under Hadrian as a more regal-looking female figure. Britannia was soon personified as a goddess, looking fairly similar to the goddess Minerva. Early portraits of the goddess depict Britannia as a beautiful young woman, wearing the helmet of a centurion, and wrapped in a white garment with her right breast exposed. She is usually shown seated on a rock, holding a spear, and with a spiked shield propped beside her. Sometimes she holds a standard and leans on the shield. On another range of coinage, she is seated on a globe above waves, Britain at the edge of the world. Similar coin types were also issued under Antoninus Pius. British Revival. Medieval use. After the Roman withdrawal, the term Britannia remained in use in Britain and abroad. Latin was ubiquitous amongst native Brythonic writers, and the term continued in the Welsh tradition that developed from it. Writing with variations on the term Britannia appeared in many Welsh works such as the Historia Brittonum, Arms Prydain, and the 12th century Historia Regum Britanniae, which gained unprecedented popularity throughout Western Europe during the High Middle Ages. Following the migration of Brythonic Celts, the term Britannia also came to refer to the Armorican Peninsula. The modern English, French, Breton and Gallo names for the area all derived from a literal use of Britannia, meaning land of the Britons. The two Britannias gave rise to the term Grande Britannia to distinguish the island of Britain from the continental peninsula. Following the Anglo-Saxon settlement of Britain, the term Briton only referred to the native British, Celtic-speaking inhabitants of the province. This remained the case until the modern era. The use of the term as an inhabitant of the island of Great Britain of the UK is relatively recent. Renaissance and British Empire. It was during the reign of Elizabeth I that Britannia came to be viewed as a personification of Britain. In his 1576 General and Rare Memorials pertaining to the perfect art of navigation, John Dee used the frontispiece figure of Britannia kneeling by the shore beseeching Elizabeth I to protect her empire by strengthening her navy. With the death of Elizabeth in 1603 came the succession of her Scottish cousin, James VI, King of Scots, to the English throne. He became James I of England, and so brought under his personal rule the kingdoms of England, Ireland and Scotland. On the 20th of October 1604, James VI proclaimed himself as King of Great Britain, France and Ireland, a title that continued to be used by many of his successors. When James came to the English throne, some elaborate pageants were staged. One pageant performed on the streets of London in 1605 was described in Anthony Munday's Triumphs of Reunited Britannia. On a mount triangular, as the island of Britain itself is described to be, we seat in the supreme place, under the shape of a fair and beautiful nymph, Britannia herself. During the reign of Charles II, Britannia made her first appearance on English coins on a farthing of 1672. With the constitutional unification of England with Scotland in 1707 and then with Ireland in 1800, Britannia became an increasingly important symbol and a strong rallying point among Britons. British power, which depended on a liberal political system and the supremacy of the navy, lent these attributes to the image of Britannia. By the time of Queen Victoria, Britannia had been renewed. Still depicted as a young woman with browny golden hair, she kept her Corinthian helmet and her white robes, but now she held Poseidon's trident and often sat or stood before the ocean and tall-masted ships representing British naval power. She also usually held or stood beside a Greek hoplite shield, which sported the British Union flag. Also at her feet was often the British lion, an animal found on the arms of England, Scotland and the Prince of Wales. Neptune is shown symbolically passing his trident to Britannia in the 1847 fresco Neptune Resigning to Britannia the Empire of the Sea by William Dyce, a painting Victoria commissioned for her Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. New Zealand has adopted a similar personification of the country in Zealandia, Britannia's daughter, who appeared on postage stamps at the turn of the 20th century and still features in the New Zealand coat of arms. Perhaps the best analogy is that Britannia is to the United Kingdom and the British Empire what Marianne is to France, or perhaps what Colombia is to the United States. Britannia became a very potent and more common figure in times of war, and represented British liberties and democracy. Modern associations. During the 1990s, the term Cool Britannia was used to describe the contemporary United Kingdom. The phrase referred to the fashionable scenes of the era, with a new generation of pop groups and style magazines, successful young fashion designers, and a surge of new restaurants and hotels. Cool Britannia represented late 1990s Britain as a fashionable place to be. In the song Waiting for the Worms, Pink Floyd makes reference to Britannia in the lyric, "Would you like to see Britannia rule again, my friend?" Depiction on British currency and postage stamps. Coinage. Although the archetypical image of Britannia seated with a shield first appeared on Roman bronze coins of the 1st century AD struck under Hadrian, Britannia's first appearance on British coinage was on the farthing in 1672, though earlier pattern versions had appeared in 1665, followed by the halfpenny later the same year. The figure of Britannia was said by Samuel Pepys to have been modelled on Frances Teresa Stuart, the future Duchesses of Richmond, who was famous at the time for refusing to become the mistress of Charles II, despite the king's strong infatuation with her. Britannia then appeared on the British halfpenny coin throughout the rest of the 17th century and thereafter until 1936. The halfpennies issued during the reign of Queen Anne have Britannia closely resembling the Queen herself. When the Bank of England was granted a charter in 1694, the directors decided within days that the device for their official seal should represent Britannia sitting on looking on a bank of money. Britannia also appeared on the penny coin between 1797 and 1970, occasional issues such as the fourpence under William IV between 1836 and 1837, and on the 50p coin between 1969 and 2008. See external links below for examples of all these coins and others. In the spring of 2008, a Royal Mint unveiled new coin designs reflecting a more modern 21st century Britain, which nowhere featured the image of Britannia. This decision courted some controversy, with tabloid press campaigns, in particular that of the Daily Mail, launched to save Britannia. The government has pointed out, however, that earlier design 50p coins will remain in circulation for the foreseeable future. Also, Britannia still appeared on the gold and silver Britannia bullion coins issued annually by the Royal Mint. Then in 2015 a new definitive £2 coin was issued, with a new image of Britannia. In late 2015, a limited edition £50 coin was produced, bearing the image of Britannia on one side and Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. Banknotes. A figure of Britannia appeared on the white fiver from 1855 for more than a century, until 1957. From 1928, Britannia Series A 10-shilling and £1 notes were printed with the seated Britannia bearing both a spear and an olive branch. The 25-cent fractional paper currency of the Dominion of Canada all depict Britannia. The notes are no longer produced and usually not used as currency anymore, although they are still legal tender. Postage stamps. Britannia also featured on the high-value Great Britain definitive postage stamps issued during the reign of George V and is depicted on the £10 stamp first issued in 1993. Britannia watermark in paper. The Britannia watermark has been widely used in paper making, usually showing her seated. An example can be found at paper molds, typepad.com. Namesakes. The name Britannia, symbolizing Britain and British patriotism, has been adopted for various purposes such as K1 Britannia, a 1994 replica of King George V's famed racing yacht Britannia, which was scuttled in 1936. Britannia Silver, a high-grade alloy of silver introduced in Britain in 1697. Britannia coins, a series of British gold bullion coins issued since 1987, which have nominal values of £100, £50, £25, and £10. HMS Britannia, any of 8 vessels of the Royal Navy. Britannia, a Royal Naval College, the Royal Navy's officer training college. The former Royal Yacht Britannia, the royal family's personal yacht, recently retired in Leith, Edinburgh, Scotland. RMS Britannia, the first steam ocean liner owned by Samuel Cunard in 1840. SS Britannia, a 1925 British liner, sunk by the German auxiliary cruiser Thor in 1941 with the loss of 122 crew and 127 passengers. MV Britannia, the flagship of the P&O cruisers fleet, which came into service in 2015. Bristol Type 175 Britannia, a 1952 British turboprop airliner. Bristol Type 603S3 Britannia, a 1983 British luxury car. Pugnas's Brettaniai, war dog of Britain. The patriotic song, Rule, Britannia. Set to music in 1740. Company names such as Britannia Building Society, Britannia Airways, Britannia Industries and AMP, Britannia Movers. The Britannia class, an alternative name for the BR Standard Class 7 series of steam locomotives produced between 1951 and 1954. The first of the BR Standard classes. Preserved Class 7 locomotive number 70,000, built in 1951, was also named Britannia. The Britannia is a popular pub name. There were 82 English public houses with this name in 2011. The Britannia Building Society traded for over a century before deciding to merge with the Cooperative Bank and now trades as Britannia. They are the official sponsors of Stoke City FC, and so the logo appears on the team's shirts, and the Britannia Stadium is named after the company. Britannia is a community south of the town of Backup in Lancashire, UK, the home of the Britannia Cocoa Nut Dances.